Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to tonight's meeting of the Ridgecrest City Council. We'll go ahead and call our meeting to order with roll call.
Mayor Bruin.
Here.
Mr. Blades.
Present.
Mr. Rajaratnam.
Present.
Mr. Heyman.
Present.
Mr. Gorman.
Present.
5 present, we have a quorum.
Okay, our first section is our approval of our agenda this evening. We do have one slight amendment to our agenda. We are removing the citizen appreciation presentation for Mr. Suver. He was unable to attend and contacted us today. Thank you for your service, Mr. Suver, to this community, and we hope we can deliver that to your office. Our next item is our closed session. We have conference with legal counsel.
Sir,
And
we need to approve the agenda.
we need to approve the agenda. I'm thinking committees versus council, sorry. Do I have a motion for approval of the agenda with the removal of presentation item 1?
So moved.
We have a motion, do I have a second?
Second.
Motion second, roll call.
Mayor Bruin.
Aye.
Mr. Blades.
Aye.
Mr. Rajaratnam.
Aye.
Mr. Heyman.
Aye.
Mr. Gorman. Aye. 5 ayes, motion carries.
Fantastic. Now we will go ahead and excuse ourselves into closed session for a conference with legal counsel. We'll return to our regular session at 6 p.m.
Litigation under Government Code 54956.9.
Thank you, sir.
Public, thank you for your patience. I do apologize. We'll go ahead and bring our session back to our regular session. For everyone out there in YouTube land, our apologies. We had some technical difficulties at the beginning and we had to extend our session about 30 minutes. We tried to avoid that at all costs, and I thank you for your patience. We thank you for your patience. If I can go ahead and bring us back with our regular session and ask everyone to please stand for our Pledge of Allegiance. Captain, if you wouldn't mind following.
Ready, begin.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Councilor Rajaratnam.
Please join me in prayer if you would. Lord, thank you for giving us this day. Lord, thank you for the opportunity you have given to us to serve this community, Lord. Lord, as we enter into this meeting and discuss various issues, Lord, let our thoughts and let our directions be beneficial to this community. Lord, bless each one of us here. I ask this in the precious name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
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 Okay. We'll go ahead with our attorney's report out of closed session.
Thank you, Honorable Mayor and council members. The council met on one item in closed session. There were no reportable actions taken by the council.
Thank you, sir. Next, on our amended agenda, as stated earlier, if you did not hear, we did approve the agenda removing presentation item number 1 as the individual was unable to attend. So we'll proceed to public comment of items not on the agenda. Persons wishing to address the council on matters that are within the council's jurisdiction and do not already appear on the agenda may do so at this time. Council will not respond to any public comments but may provide direction to staff to collect information. Pursuant to the Brown Act, the City Council may not act on any item that does not appear on this agenda. Speakers are limited to 5 minutes, and the public comment section of the agenda is limited to a total of 1 hour. Each speaker is asked to provide his or her name, and I will go ahead and start with any public comment from the floor.
Good afternoon, council.
Ron.
Yeah, yours is, I don't think it's on yet.
Sorry.
Ron.
I don't think your mic's
Who's
on
not
yet.
on? Bless you.
Planned censorship.
There you go.
No.
Thank you.
But there we go. Reset
Thank
the
you.
clock for you. Thank you. Sorry.
I'll try to keep it less than 5 minutes. I just published a post called Live at the Ridgecrest City Council. The CARES Act was bribery. Hospitals and doctors got cash for jabs and deadly COVID treatments. Cities went on wild spending sprees, and you were lied to about everything from day one. According to Dr. Peter McCullough, everything that was done about COVID was wrong. I'm going to quote from a presentation that he gave in September of 2022 at the Remdesivir lawsuit conference in Fresno. From the very beginning of the COVID-19 crisis, it fell into the minds of people to hurt other people from the very beginning. And it was simultaneous, and it was all over the world. We have never witnessed this in human history. It landed in the most remote areas of the world to the most populous areas of the world. Everything about COVID was done incorrectly, from lockdowns to unnecessary testing to very, very strict prohibition of reasonable things to help individuals, to people losing their jobs, and then sadly to the intentional suppression of early treatment. And it was everything. And it was from the very beginning. In France, they took hydroxychloroquine off the over-the-counter market months before the virus was even announced. From the very beginning, there was a plan to use SARS-CoV-2, this pandemic, to craft a program of mass vaccination in the world. The suppression of early treatment and the suppression of any advancement in hospital care was intentional to create fear, suffering, hospitalization, and death in order to prepare the world's population to accept mass vaccination with no end in sight. This is probably one of the most prominent medical experts in the world. He's been following this aggressively since day one. To complete his quote, it was very intentional. It was very intentional. He then goes on to talk about the process of patient rights and medical reconciliation, and how a woman in Texas was denied treatment across the board. And when she finally died, he recommended she get an autopsy. He would have recommended she be given full blood thinners. Her lungs were full of blood clots. And just within the last 2 days, Dr. McCullough responds to Anthem Blue Cross Blue Shield's scheme of paying bonuses to doctors to inject patients in their care. How much money did the doctors make by promoting the experimental mRNA gene therapy called the safe and effective COVID-19 vaccine? Answer, if they got to over 70% vaccinated, these doctors were getting bonus payments of $250,000 each. He goes on to say, I'm so sick and disappointed to hear this. The average doctor has 2,000 Blue Cross Blue Shield patients in their panel. If they got to over 70% vaccinated, these doctors were getting bonus payments of $250,000. It's really terrible to think that doctors pushed an unsafe and ineffective vaccine, but it looks like that's what happened. In this post, you'll also find a 1-hour-long presentation by Dr. Naomi Wolf, who has formed a team of 3,500 experts, doctors and attorneys, to analyze the COVID or the Pfizer documents. You should listen to this, especially if you're a woman or you have children. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Is there any other public comment from the floor? Seeing none, is there any public comment on the phones? Seeing none, I'll give it just a moment to allow anybody to call in. Seeing none, we'll go ahead and move on to the next part of our agenda. Next item on our agenda is our council announcements and direction. I'll go ahead and start left to right. Mr. Blades?
I have nothing.
Someone? Well, Solomon is not gonna say something, but since this is council announcements, I'm gonna go ahead and share an announcement that he probably should have, and he's gonna get in trouble when he gets home. But I have, as everyone knows, I have 4 beautiful children. 3 of my children have went through the Emmanuel Christian's Child Development Center, and this weekend they are beginning their 20th anniversary celebration. They have served over 2,000 children in our community over the last 20 years in providing preschool education and child development services for our working parents and families in this community. And I just wanted to make sure that I recognize and thank them for their incredible years of service to this community, and you're in trouble when you get home. Okay, the second was the Ridgecrest Star Follies are a week from this Friday. I would like to invite and encourage anyone to come out to this unique Ridgecrest event, which brings together community leaders and has been, will be celebrating its 29th year. And if you just need something funny to look at, there might just be an elected official in a great big beer keg costume that will provide some entertainment. So those were my 2 announcements. Scott?
I have no comments, thank you.
Skip? Okay. Next item is our consent calendar. All items listed on the consent are considered to be routine and non-controversial by city staff. Consent items may be approved by one motion if no member of the council or audience wishes to comment or ask questions. If comment or discussion is desired by anyone, the item will be removed from the consent calendar and will be considered in listed sequence with an opportunity for any member of the public to address the council concerning the item before action is taken. There is one consent item, which I will read now. A resolution authorizing the execution of the certification and assurances and authorized agent forms for the Low Carbon Transit Operations Program, LCTOP, for the following project: battery electric van replacement purchase of $71,645. Do any members of the council wish to see the item pulled? Do any member of the public wish to see the item pulled? Hearing none, do I have a motion for the consent calendar as presented?
So moved.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a motion and second. Roll call.
Mayor Bruin,
Aye.
Mr. Blades,
Aye.
Mr. Rajaratnam,
Aye.
Mr. Hayman,
Aye.
Mr. Gorman,
Aye.
5 ayes, motion carries.
Okay, next item is item number 3. This is our regular monthly discussion item regarding the board of the Indian Wells Valley Groundwater Authority. Mr. Hayman.
Thank you, Mayor. So the Groundwater Authority did meet last Wednesday on April 12th. It was a short meeting, so I'll go over the highlights of it. And so starting with agenda item number 9, which was the authorized release of request of proposals to conduct the 2022 financial audit. So I think everybody's aware we have a Brown Armstrong had been doing the audits for the GA in the past, but there's been multiple delays and an increase in the fees that they were charging to get the report, which we still have not received, but we are in the process of seeking out a new auditing company to perform the audits for the Groundwater Authority. So,
And Scott, I remember if I heard you guys right, do you, I think manager said that they're not paying until they get the report?
that additional fees we have retained until we receive the report. So and we're supposed to have it next, or possibly in May. So I'll give you an update if we conclude that. But in the meantime, we will kind of counter losses on the previous consulting firm and seek a new one. Agenda item 10 was a grant of easement with the United States Navy for installation of telemetry equipment. And basically that was pretty straightforward. It's an easement that we need authorized with the Navy so that we can use that telemetry equipment, and that's in the process. And so that was all we have there. On agenda item 11, approval of reimbursement agreement with the Bureau of Land Management for assistance permitting for imported water pipeline. Basically, the BLM is involved with some of the permitting and work, and so that money, they will be reimbursed for their part in it, and it will be basically set to where there will be money put into the account, certain amounts, and then as they use it, we'll put in more as they need it. I don't want to quote the exact amount, but I believe it was in the realm of $150,000 or, yeah, I don't want to quote on that, but, and that money's coming out of the Sigma, the 7.6 million, or not Sigma, but the DWR 7.6 million, and Provost and Pritchard, who is doing a lot of that work. They'll be working in conjunction with them, and I guess you could say it's like a subcontractor that does the right-of-ways and permitting and the pipeline study. So that was approved. And item number 12 was approval of Resolution 05-23, CEQA notice of exemption for the geotechnical borings for the imported water pipeline study. And so basically, the borings are part of the technical work that they'll be doing. They'll be taking drilling and pulling data and information out. But a lot of that's going to be in areas along the route. I think everybody's familiar with coming from Cal City along Garlock, and so a lot of that is on roadways and stuff. So they are seeking CEQA exemption for that work.
Is that all that middle route still?
The middle route, yes.
Yeah, okay.
Exactly. And I believe that was all of the main agenda items. Next, we had the Water Resource Manager's report. Jean, she gave a lot of that report. There's some work being done. The well that's up near the Rose Valley area, it has started, they've started the drilling, and they ran into some pretty solid rock. And so they're hoping that it's a boulder or, so they're working on that, and we'll get an update once they get through that, that portion of the drilling. I'm anxious to kind of see if indeed it's a short period of rock they're into, or if they're into a big, thick section, but we'll find out. LADWP, I think everybody may have heard, or I'll go over it. Los Angeles Department of Water and Power, they in 2017 they had to release water in a high water year to manage their pumping up north and their facilities. And so this year they're doing the same. They have 200 and roughly 80% of snowpack and normal up in the Inyo and Mono basins. And so they're letting water out at 5 different points in our basin. So that's good. That's water coming into our basin. So any water we can get in is a good thing. It's nice having some communication and working with the DWP on this. Water District is doing a pretty fair amount of the work. And one of the things they'd like to find out from this water, not only is it's water that's coming into the basin, but where that water is going. And so they've been taking data, water quality samples, and wells monitoring and that type of thing. So for a while, so they're doing some other processes too that will help them to try to follow that water to see if they can tell where it's going. And so I think that's pretty using it as a opportunity. It's not too often you get the availability to have water dumping in at different areas and see where it's going. But and I think that pretty much sums up the meeting. Like I say, it was pretty short and quick. So with that, I'm open to any questions or comments anybody might have.
Yeah, I have a few. They're not questions. You're not a hydrologist or a geologist, so I don't expect you to have the answers to these questions, but they're ones that came across my mind as I was watching the meeting. And I think I have the answer to this, but I wanted to ask it publicly. Why is LADWP dumping the water? Why are they releasing it? Is it because it can't be handled on their end? Is it because of legal reasons? And I think that I see Ron moving to his mic.
Yeah,
so.
I believe it's the fact that they have an overcapacity of water. They even had their aqueduct had washed out when those rains and the heavy floods pre-snowpack runoff. I mean, some of that was snow runoff from the rains, but the heavy extent of the snowpack is still in the Sierras, and so they, I believe it's to be able to control flooding, control their facilities up there.
Where is it going to be released at?
They gave a map. There's five different points. I know Freeman Gulch, which everybody's familiar with that one, where the turnoff for 178, like you're going to Lake Isabella.
Yep.
So, and then there's Bird Springs, and the other 3, I don't know off the top of my head. I don't know if Ron, you know.
Yeah, I think one's Grapevine Canyon, and there's 2 others that are just Slough gates. that they
Basically
have.
from the north end, well, semi-north end of our basin down to the Freeman.
Which one? Oh, Dixie?
Dixie
Yeah, Little
Wash.
Dixie Wash.
So my hope is, and I'm sure this is the case, because the water district knows the basin and the geology of the basin pretty well. I'm hoping that it was more of a planned, yeah, let's definitely do these areas for saturation down into the basin.
I don't think we may not see that, just because there really wasn't enough time to anticipate, and because of, I know they're trying to do a notice of exemption due to the emergency release of the water, but they may not be able to get through the environmental reports to be able to direct that water into locations where they could maybe do a study for water banking or something like that. So I know they're still working on how they can work through that process to see if they could channel that water to a location where we could actually do a study to see if there's any beneficial use of banking in that area.
Yeah, I saw Chuck, he talked about setting up a dam, like a sand dam, something to that effect.
Right, but there's a few obstacles on that in
Oh, yeah.
regards to BLM. But one of the other reasons why they're releasing water in our area, one's because their capacity, and two, they're trying to preserve their dust mitigation system on Owens Lake. And if it gets flooded out there, it could damage all that work and their stuff that they have out there to control dust during wind events in the future.
Sure. I think the next question I had is, I remember seeing comments during the meeting that despite this being a strong, wet year, that there could be numbers, like you'd see a plus up in some of the wells, but that would stabilize back down to where, so my question is, again, not a hydrologist, when do we expect to see that stabilize? Because if we're because and the reason I ask that
Right.
is if
So-
I understand the GSP correctly, that has to be updated every 5 years, but we're showing really high numbers that are abnormal.
Yeah, I believe it was in the water manager's report. They talked a little bit about that. They didn't get to that specific of a detail, but they did say that when you have heavy rains or you have heavy water let off into an area, that you'll see an increase, like a short-term or immediate increase in like well levels. But that's due to, again, out of my scope here, but hydrology of, I guess in my mind, I was thinking in the lines of like you have increased water coming down, you have increased pressures, you have a short-term, as this water's moving and it's going to show a short-term elevation, but that is not a indicator that the surface water created a dramatic increase in
Right, it's not a
groundwater
mean
levels or storage.
increase in the whole basin. It's
Right.
just, yeah, sure.
And you'll hear that, I've kept up on, kind of abreast of the statewide, the drought. Yes, we're coming out of the drought, but a lot of the more technical data you'll read on some of these reports coming out on the public is that the effect on the groundwater levels itself isn't helping California that dramatically. So
Not when there's
even though
not water
We've
in
had a
it.
wet year, and it'll be great for the short term, and people who have water, farmers will have water, and it'll be good in that event. But it would take many years of wet years in a cycle to affect the groundwater. And some of that water's, I mean, we don't get too deep in this, but some of that water's very old water.
Plasticine.
And it's coming from, thousands-year-old water, so.
Sure.
But
Yeah, and the state would have to have infrastructure in place to catch some of that fresh water on the whole. So, and I
Yeah.
don't see that happening in the next.
On a short note on that, I think kudos to Lake Isabella and the Army Corps of Engineers for, that project was a long project. I was over there this weekend and got to see it. It's impressive, a good site to go see. But they pulled that off at a very good time. They finished it, and they were able to capitalize on I don't know, maybe 100-year record of runoff.
If I can jump in there, I don't want to interrupt your question, but is there any positive impact to Isabella now? Now, this is where I'm playing out is Isabella was for years a water reservoir and a storage facility, which meant that the ground was consistently soaked for years. Now, 15 years, I mean, I can't remember how many years it's taken for that project. Is it 10?
About 10 years.
10, 15 years. Let's put it this way. I'm excited to see Lake Isabella be Lake Isabella again. And I've been here 19 years. Is there any positive impact that we get by having that water reservoir back up that we may have had unintended consequences of having it as dry as it was for as long. I know it's not our basin, but water still moves underground in ways that we don't understand.
I mean.
I just didn't know if it was brought up
Probably out
that
of my-
there was
out of
any
my scope
benefit.
to
I just
say,
didn't know if there was any
but-
benefit.
But the fact that it was.
I haven't heard.
I mean,
Yeah.
there's 500,000 acre feet of water again in a lake that has been dry for,
But it was dry
Close to
before
10
they
years.
ever,
yeah.
it was never a natural lake. So taking water out of it, like a pool, you'd have cracks and you'd have movement or change in the hydrology under the ground. And
Yeah.
I see where you're going, but it's
Yeah,
like-
and I just don't know.
I would assume
I was
that
just
that lake
curious
is-
if there
No,
was any conversation
I would say it's
about impacts.
still Lake Isabella.
It's still Lake Isabel. It's still waiting to see. I mean, but I also look at it
Bakersfield
as
will be very happy because they'll have more storage and. I
they
think
have
the-
more storage, they have more.
The community over there is going to be greatly served by this because it should build back their community by having that lake.
Oh, it'll be
Yeah,
very.
yeah, so I think
for Lake
it's good
Isabel,
overall.
Kern River Valley.
And they were able to pull it off and have that lake. They were letting out so much water out of it right now because I was amazed how much water's come out of the end of the lower Kern because and the lake's fairly full, so they're playing this swap-up game. I don't think everybody remembers when Lake Oroville was pretty full, and then when these atmospheric rivers came in, and I'm sure, in hopes of, having plenty of water, you don't want to let more out than you need, but that lake spilled over and.
I was just
they had a
curious. Sorry,
problem, but-
sorry to interrupt you, Mr. Blades.
No, we're
Go ahead,
good.
Kyle.
So actually, that was my last question. I just wanted to understand what that timeline looks like for the aquifers to stabilize to
Yeah,
get
I'll
good
ask.
data
I'll
again.
ask Mr. Johnson and see if he knows, or Jeff Halsey, but they may have some rough estimates. That's a 3-month or 6-month or
Sure.
yeah.
Thank you.
Does anybody else have any other questions? I don't. Okay. Is there any members of the public that have any questions?
Mike Senat, I really enjoyed the last Groundwater Authority meeting, and and I'm glad to communicate with Councilman Heyman anytime. You're a cool dude, and it wasn't directed at you, and I know you know that. I'll give you a little report. I've spent the last month and a half, 2 months, traveling in the San Joaquin Valley, the Sequoias, the Kern River Valley, and Inyo County. I just got back from 4 days in Bishop and Olancha. I was up in Kernville during the March 11th flood, and I also lost the opportunity because I left a day early to take a snowcat up into the Kings Canyon to see the cliff roads that had collapsed. I also have a friend over there that's a manager of the Kern-Fremont Canal. But what I wanted to tell you, and that was a good question, Mayor Brune, about where's that water go from the South Kern. The whole area around Onyx is pretty much a saturated floodplain. And based on the water that's flowing out of Walker Pass into the El Pasos, there's a good probability a lot of that water is coming in through the Onyx area. I think you heard a report that there was an increase in the El Paso recharge, a couple thousand acre feet, which is really good news. And that's probably from the rains that happened 3 years ago. So I view, like Dr. Austin, I view the mountains as one big sponge of crushed granite and rocks and crevices and whatnot, and it sucks up water and it holds it. I mean, it doesn't all just flow out in the form of snow and runoff. It's deep, and that's where we get decomposed granite. It's all wet. So the interesting thing that I wanted to tell you, Inyo County, you know, they're not going to let anybody export water outside of their county. They're not real concerned about Crystal Geyser because Crystal Geyser could send 100 trucks a day out of that plant, and it wouldn't make a dent in the overall quantity of water that they're dealing with. There's an estimate out there that there's 1 million acre feet of water that's going to come off the Eastern Sierra. Right now, they're rebuilding part of the dam on the Hawee Reservoir. And so I just went and photographed it, and it's quite a project. So they're working on the project there. I also talked to some people that knew about the water district purchasing a couple properties up there, and they dug a well, and then the county said no more export, and that killed that idea. But they spent some money buying the land and putting in a well. By the way, Crystal Geyser has a large number, I won't say the number, but a large number of artesian wells, which means the water just comes up. And where I know these water district areas are, they're probably water table's about 40 feet. And it was during the drought, so it's not like they're going to run out of water. It's a matter of sucking too much water out of the area. That's the problem. And if you understand solar cycles, we're going to be in a rainy, cold, wintry solar cycle for years. So we may see the return of what you remember, or at least Councilman Gorman, and I think Ron's kind of young. He may not remember, but I remember the snow every year and the mountains full of snow. So anyway, for what it's worth, it doesn't look bad.
Thank you, sir. Any other public comment? Okay. Bring it back to council. Any further questions for Dr. Heyman? I just wanted to once again reiterate thank you for your service on the GA. I gotta imagine it's kind of weird, all of a sudden going through the past couple of years of drought and all of the challenges that water has been, and then we have a sudden abundance of water, and everyone looks at you and says, "Well, this solves all the problems, right?"
No,
No, exactly.
but I think there is some positiveness to it,
Oh,
even for the GA.
Oh, of course. There's lots of
And-
positivity. I'm just sharing. Everybody thinks that this, you can have one moment and it's going to solve years of what's been created. I look at it as the instant gratification of generations that think that it's, it got a little wet, so all of a sudden all of our problems are gone. No, we are far from it. I'm thrilled to see Isabella back, though.
Two things I'd like to say. One is I find it interesting, and when it comes to mountains and people drilling wells in mountains, that sometimes they don't go down; they could just go into a mountain and get water. And second is the solar flare scientific work. If you read on that, I have read up on that, so it's interesting to hear Mr. Snot say something about it. But it's really interesting, and when you correlate it to, some of the, at least in my reading of it and assessing it, correlate to global, I don't like the term global warming or climate change. I mean, climate change, I guess you could use as a generic term, but, the world's always changing, but these scientists, I think, have a pretty valid go at the effects of solar flares on the climate in the world. So anyway, it'd be fun, if you want to read some interesting things that does kind of parlay right into the climate. That's one of them, and heating and cooling of the earth.
Skip, we got a TED Talk we got to go find, you and I, on solar flares, okay? We got to go find a TED Talk on solar flares, okay? So, thank you, Doc. Okay. Next item is item number 4. Item number 4 is a resolution of the Ridgecrest City Council, the City Council of the City of Ridgecrest, authorizing the city manager to sign and file financial assistance application and subsequent agreements with the California State Water Resources Council Control Board for the planning, design, and construction of the new wastewater treatment plant.
Yes, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, this resolution is required for us to move forward on that application process. As you know, we were awarded $2.5 million in last year's, or actually this year's budget to assist the city in designing and constructing the new wastewater facility. So by approving this resolution tonight, you're giving me the authority to file the application and all subsequent agreements so we can obtain this funding through the process.
I just have a fairly simple, technical question. How much are we applying for?
Oh, we've already been awarded the money.
Oh, okay, so this
It
is
was,
just,
it was an assistance, a direct award from the state that's going to be managed through the Department of Water Resources. So really, this is just the application to be able to acquire that funding. We've done quite a bit of paperwork.
this is just, okay, so this is just signing off on it, sorry.
This is just signing off. This is
Okay.
just what they need to be able to process the
The
application for my
2.5 million.
signature. Yeah.
Okay, sorry. Okay. I will pass for questions. Kyle?
Actually, no question. This is a pretty straightforward administrative, and since the fiscal impact is us getting 25 to 2.5 mil in grant funding, I didn't have that many questions to ask about that. I mean, I'm sure, I do encourage the public to read, if you get the agenda, go online to the City of Ridgecrest and look up the actual agenda so you can see the data package. And you can get a little bit of background information about where the design is, when the execution is for the wastewater plant. So it's good to go and read. It's good information. Nothing further.
No questions, but just a clarification. So I thought we applied for some grant sometime back for 4.7 million or 2.7, something like that.
No, actually, this was a funding award that was put in by our elected officials, Groves and Fong, and it was included in the 2022 Budget Act. So it was, for lack of better terms, it was an earmark for financial assistance for us to build our new wastewater treatment facility. But we do have other grants we're going to be applying for. Defense Community Infrastructure Program grant. We'll apply for that in May of '24. And we're going to start working on it with the base command in November of this year to get the commander's letter that needs to go along with our application. In fact, we met with representatives with the federal government yesterday. They were here in town for the ribbon cutting of Richmond School, and we met with them, had a chance to talk to them about that, the old CC, DCIP program that's coming up. So we're also looking for an earmark for state revolving fund loan. That was part of our purpose going back to Washington, D.C., was to ask for an earmark on that, a designation. And so we should be hearing about that here in the next couple months, how that's going to process through. But regardless, we're going to still apply for the state revolving fund loan when it's appropriate to do so, when we're about 90% designed.
Yeah, I remember seeing something that we applied in 2001.
Is that for
GA has
permitting
applied
the
something
risk-
for
Might have been a groundwater authority grant, but we haven't applied. I mean, this was the only request we've made so far, because this award here we can actually use for planning and design, whereas everything else we have to be shovel-ready. And we're not going to be shovel-ready until June of '24, when we'll be at 100% design. And that's one of the reasons why we're not applying for that Defense Community Infrastructure grant this year, because we'd have to be shovel-ready 12 months from the award date, and everything is just, there's still too many things out there that could delay potentially the groundbreaking, and we really didn't want to take that chance of losing the money when we know we still have a very good opportunity to get it in '24.
I'm not disputing that, but I little bit closely follow this. Can you take a look at this and tell me what this is? Just want to be clear on this.
Yeah, this looks like a groundwater authority. This wouldn't be the city of Ridgecrest.
I don't know what, I have some documents I've been following, so that's why I had that question. So maybe that did not go to the state.
Yeah, this would be the planning funding for the recycled water project, which would be, I think this was the groundwater authority that applied for it. And they received funding. It was part of that, we had the $7.6 million award through the state that has nothing to do with the city. Can remember there, we have the wastewater treatment facility, which is us building a new secondary treatment facility and an office and maintenance shops. The recycled water project is a separate project from our wastewater facility. Even though the wastewater facility has to be built for the recycled water project to be built, because we have to have water to send to them. But the city has taken the stance as the recycled water project's not our project because it doesn't benefit our ratepayers. It would benefit the groundwater authority in regards to adding additional beneficial water to the basin. So we wouldn't, although we'd participate in preparing the grant and information based upon what we're doing with the new facility, we would not actually be an applicant at this point in time based upon where we feel we are at in that whole process. So we're wastewater facility, recycled water, imported water is a groundwater authority.
So that is for GA then.
Correct. This is GA. It has nothing, I mean, the city's involved in the GA as staff and obviously is the board director. But as for applying for that, that would be the groundwater authority.
Second clarification. So we are running behind schedule on wastewater treatment plant, right? Maybe like 2 years, almost?
Well, yeah, we were set behind a little bit with getting the easement with the Navy, but we are currently on track with the last schedule that we put out. And in fact, the 30% design is complete. I was going to announce during my city manager's comment that we're planning to come back to council second meeting in June for a presentation with our consultant on the 30% design. And we're looking to move forward from the 30% design to the full design, which should be done in June of '24.
I'm not trying to be sassy here, but in answer to your question, if the wastewater plant is behind schedule, it's been about 10 years behind schedule. I want to compliment our city staff has been working very diligently, at least since I have been sat on the dais, to continue to move this project forward, and I have not heard them change the date from 2025 once. I know. I was just having a little fun. Yes, wastewater has been way behind for a decade.
Yeah, because in one of the meetings, you presented a schedule of implementation, so that's why I asked that question.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot of factors that can, obviously it took a while for the city, the Navy to get all of the environmental folks together to get us in concert together to start really moving this thing forward. So no, we are currently on track with the current schedule. Not saying we may not get thrown behind by some environmental issue that may come up that we're not aware of. I know we've attempted to anticipate and mitigate and address everything that's come up so far. I know right now that the Navy is working well with us right now, and we're just going through, we have meetings continually on now the design of the it started off at first, the design of the actual wastewater facility itself. Then the next phase was the office building, maintenance shop, and how that correlated with that current 5-acre footprint. So that's pretty much where we're at right now. I know the 35% design will include some of the alterations that staff made, as we're going through the 30% design. So we will bring that back to council so you guys are informed of, here's where we're at. This is what the facility looks like. This is what the office building, maintenance shop, and be able to answer all those questions about where we're heading. But so right now I don't think we're waiting on anything. So,
Thank you, sir.
well, yeah, there's a few, yeah. No, actually, I think the power study's done. Good.
Skip, did you have any questions? Skip, do you have any questions? No. Okay. You what?
Yes. I don't have any questions, but I just want to say, I think the overall work that City Manager Strand's done on this wastewater treatment plant has been really fantastic. And so the timing of it, I mean, well, from a citizen standpoint, and a councilman's standpoint, but as a citizen standpoint, I look at it and think that, okay, he not only did he get the the work with the Navy and the contracts on the easements and done, but he's looked into all these different ways to save money, bring money in for this wastewater treatment plant that ultimately comes down to helping the citizens of Ridgecrest, from the DCIP grant to the state revolving fund loan to this item that we're talking about tonight. And so he's done a great job with it, and I personally want to commend you for this, because this, I think the GA's projects too kind of coincide and work in and around, this wastewater treatment plant. And so this is on time. So now, the recycled water plant can come in, and then the pipeline project can come in. And so these things all kind of parlay off of each other. So I'm pretty excited about it.
Yeah, I just want to go ahead and reiterate, absolutely, Doc, you nailed it on the head. I can still remember going to DC in the late 2000s and the 8s and the 9s and being asked to re-mention wastewater. And I think there's another important point that the public just should understand, which is, in this proposal that we're estimating the cost just shy of $80 million for the wastewater treatment plant. That's not a solid number. We still got supply chains. We still got 2 more years. There's no way we can hang our hat on that number. But the number I can confidently hang my hat on is that through the collection of sewer fees and through the continued efforts of our city staff and the grant process and everything that we're continuing to work on as a collective group, we probably have about 2/3 of the total cost in reserve. I'm not saying 3/4. I trimmed down from 3/4 to 2/3. But that's important to note, because what that means is that if we have an $80 million facility, and even if the worst case scenario is that we have 1/3 still to pay, that is going to reduce the burden on our citizens dramatically. And that is what our citizens are hoping and expecting of us. We certainly are seeing it, and I'll report it in another report we're going to talk about here in a minute. But the decisions to try and manage the expense impact on our local citizenship is a focus we've continued to have for the last several years. And I just, again, you nailed it, Doc. Okay, if there's no other discussion, do I have a motion for approval of the resolution as presented?
So moved.
I have a motion, do I have a second?
Public comment, Mayor?
I did public comment. This was coming back. I had already called for public comment, Martin.
Okay, thank you, sorry.
No problem, sir.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Roll call.
Mayor Bruin,
Aye.
Mr. Blades,
Aye.
Mr. Rajaratnam,
Aye.
Mr. Heyman,
Aye.
Mr. Gorman. Aye. 5 ayes, motion carries.
Okay, our next item is item number 5. This is a second reading and adoption of ordinance 2301, an ordinance of the Ridgecrest City Council amending the Ridgecrest Municipal Code concerning the extension of tentative parcel maps and tentative tract maps. Mrs. Spurlock.
Does she, are we going to make her say, this is the 3rd time we've read this?
Good evening, Mayor, members of the council. So this is a second reading. This is an amendment to the municipal code to change tentative parcel maps and tentative tract map extensions as allowable by the Subdivision Map Act. We did have some changes at the first reading, just to kind of clarify with the parcel maps, that it would be a 24-month extension would be possible. Both maps would have a life that would max out at 6 years instead of the 3-year term that is now. Do you guys have any questions?
I have none. I think we've probably beat this horse to death. But we did a good job of it. And then that's the point. The point is that when we don't understand something, we ask questions. And for everyone out there who says we don't read and pay attention to all this stuff, this is an example of, this is probably something that would generally be considered very simple, but we definitely took the time to make sure we talked about it. So I don't have any other questions. Any other member of the council have any questions? Hearing none, is any member of the, oh, I apologize, sir.
Sorry. So this resolution is with the incorporation of the corrections we pointed out last time?
Yes, correct. So if you look under,
The only clarity I wanted to have is, if you see,
it should be under section 2. And then you see E, says the 20, not to exceed 24 months, because that was for the parcel maps, because that was
Yeah.
not in there.
so it reads here, a time extension not exceeding 24 months. But don't you think we should say 24 months increments, but not to exceed total of 6 years?
If that's what you would like.
I'm sorry?
If that's what you would like, yeah.
I don't know.
I don't know either. I think
What is the intention? You want to have 6 years or only 24 months?
Well, it says 24 months, but then if you go down into the addition, it fully spells out that it's not to exceed a total period of 6 years.
yeah, I think we touched on this last time,
Right, this is.
Right.
that we were debating whether to put it all in one sentence if it's already spelled out somewhere else.
We could do it twice for clarity's sake if you think that's necessary.
I think we should.
And that change is not a material or substantive change. So we would not need to conduct a second reading. So if it's the desire of the council to add basically a time extension not exceeding 24 months may be granted to the planning commission, the total extension not to exceed
6 years,
6 years.
if that is the intention.
That's fine. That's what, and Martin's saying that, and we're talking about adding that sentence to section 2, subsection E, correct?
Yeah.
After may be granted by the planning commission, a sentence that specifically states the total period cannot exceed 6 years. Is that
Correct.
correct?
That's
Correct.
correct.
Is that satisfactory to you?
I think that's, you know what, I guess I have to agree with Solomon, because if you go down into F, it is spelled out for the subdivision maps, shall be
Yeah.
36
The
months.
same way.
And then it's spelled out into 6 years,
So the same way it should be
but
spelled
not
out.
exceed a total of 6 years on F, section 4 F. So I guess I'm agreeing
The
with.
way that, you're saying the way section 4F is reading is how section 2E should read in terms of the, specifically, upon written application, time extension may be granted in 36 months, but not to exceed a total of 6 years. And so, in this case, we're talking about, just to make sure that a time extension of 20, not exceeding 24 months.
Not exceeding 24 months.
I'm just making sure that we're not using exceed twice in the back. I guess the most effective way is simply a sentence at the end that the total length of extension cannot exceed 6 years. based on how it's written.
Yeah.
That'd be my recommendation.
Okay. Okay. Is there any other questions or concerns in regards to that? Okay. Any other concerns? Okay. I'll go ahead and call it out for public comment. Is there any public comment? Seeing none. I'll go ahead and bring it back to council. So I have a motion, I have a minor change, and I'd like to request a motion to waive the reading in full of ordinance 2301, an ordinance of the Ridgecrest City Council amending the Ridgecrest Municipal Code concerning extension of tentative parcel maps and tentative tract maps with the addition of the single sentence in section 2E.
So moved.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a motion and second. Roll call.
Mayor Bruin,
Aye.
Mr. Blades.
Aye.
Mr. Rajaratnam,
Aye.
Mr. Heyman,
Aye.
Mr. Gorman,
Aye.
5 ayes, motion carries.
And then I'd like to call for a motion to adopt by title only ordinance 2301, an ordinance of the Ridgecrest City Council amending the Ridgecrest Municipal Code concerning an extension of tentative parcel maps and tentative tract maps with the addition of the single sentence as described to section 2E.
So moved.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Motion and second. Roll call.
Mayor Bruin,
Aye.
Mr. Blades.
Aye.
Mr. Rajaratnam,
Aye.
Mr. Heyman,
Aye.
Mr. Gorman,
Aye.
5 ayes, motion carries.
Thank you.
Thanks, Heather.
Okay, next on our calendar today is our committee reports. First committee up is myself and Mr. Gorman. Our city org meeting was held on April the 6th. Skip, you wanna take this one, or you want me to?
It was too long ago. You take it.
Okay, so the city org meeting, once again, our primary focus at city org right now is the continued implementation of SB 1383 and continuing to discuss and monitor its progress. Our staff continues to reiterate that while citizen concerns continue to exist, they have significantly reduced. We've also done a great job of continuing our active communication with community. The Eco Hero program was very successful in our local schools, and we're hoping to bring it back again. There was several schools that asked for it to be returned, and we're looking forward to that. We still have grant funds to support that. We did make the decision to not set a third trash town hall, and that was based on largely a meeting that is occurring as we speak right now at the Ridgecrest Public Library, which is that the County of Kern has begun its implementation of SB 1383 for the unincorporated areas of Kern County. I've been asked, what does that mean when I say unincorporated areas? That means the citizens in the surrounding area of Ridgecrest as an incorporated area that would include the communities of Inyo, Kern, Randsburg, and well as any other county residents living or in around the city of Ridgecrest. The County of Kern has begun its process towards a July 1st implementation of a compliant program. Their program, which will include 3 barrels and weekly service, will not be a monthly billing, but a property tax billing, and it will carry a higher cost per household than the city's negotiated program, which was specifically targeted based on the reduction of the trash service from weekly service to biweekly service, which provided our citizens a savings. The other big decision we obviously made was not to place it on the property tax rolls, but rather to continue to work with our citizens as effectively as possible. The county is implementing that over the next, I guess, 60 days, or let's say about 72 days. I'm sure there will be more communication. The only reason why I'm making that point is because we did have one individual who came to the meeting and was asking about trash and specifically his disenchantment with the fact that we moved the city yard collection facility further down the road on Ridgecrest Boulevard to the waste management facility. And he was very adamant that he did not intend to take trash all the way down there. And we informed him that he wouldn't have to in the future because he was a county resident. They'll pick it up at the curb. I don't believe that there's been great communication out to our local community for our unincorporated citizens who consider Ridgecrest home. I apologize. That's not something I have any control over. That's Kern County Public Works. But I do encourage our citizens to get educated on that. I believe that was everything that we covered pretty much through city org. Is there any other additions you had, Skip?
No.
Okay. Next is Finance Committee, and I can't report on this because I was MIA. And Solomon stepped in, so I'll let Solomon or Scott.
Okay, so Finance Committee, we reviewed sales tax. Overall sales tax amounts coming in are trending well. Moving on to Measure V, same with Measure V, no major changes. Everything's looking to be on track. We discussed just kind of briefly that there will be a separate Measure P report once Measure P is starting to be tracked. So there will be a Measure V report and a Measure P, a Measure V and a Measure P report. But in the annual report, they'll be combined. But and so that was Measure V. And then next the TOT is looking stable, so things are good there. Last was property taxes. Property taxes are doing well, but, looking at the graph, it looks down because April, there was the April check from the counties in, but it didn't make it in time for this meeting. So it looks substantially low, but would be right on par with where Sharif thinks that we should be sitting. So that's all good. We reviewed a little bit about the current projects with the parks and then some of the pending projects. I'll leave some of that though, as far as what's completed and work on those projects for the quality of life guys to discuss on that. And then last, I think the thing we talked about was some things that the staff is doing and Cherie's which I thought was really a big one, is the employee compensation. That is in process, and so they are currently working on the salary schedules and starting with some of the most, let's just say, those employees with the further gap. And when the employee compensation study was done, there was some different positions within the city weren't as far off on the salaries as, in comparison to other like communities. And those that were far off are the ones that they're going to start working on first. So I was really pleased to see that come a long way with that. And congratulations to the council and especially to our finance director and city manager, because they have been working hard on this to bring it through. But it's nice to see this coming to, we went from employees not having a COLA raise for, 13 years to, we started the process with some slow changes. We got medical changes. We got a short raise in the COLA, but then with the hard work of everybody in the community supporting Measure P, the employees are going to be taken care of. So that's fantastic. Solomon?
No, you covered
Anything?
everything.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, gentlemen. Next is RACB is not yet, infrastructure is not yet. Those are the only two. Okay. Other committees, boards, or commissions? Any reports? No? Okay. City manager report.
Yeah, I just have a couple things. The committee's still working on the next Night on Balsam Street event. It's scheduled for May 19th. I attended their meeting briefly today. It appears everything's moving right along. One of the activities we're going to have out there is the local cornhole group's going to hold a tournament during the event. I believe Cerro Costa Community College is going to have some adult game activities, adult Jenga on one end of the street. Band, I think we have a few more food vendors showing up this time, as well as our wineries at Attachby. So I think here shortly, we'll see a lot more marketing that will be pushed out to the public so we can see if we can get this event attended as well as the last one. And of course, the other issue, I mentioned it briefly during my resolution, was we're looking at coming to council, second meeting in June, to present on the 30% design of the wastewater facility. It's time to bring that back to council so you know where we're heading at for the final design, leading to 100% design of the facility so we can move forward with construction. Other than that, everything's budget. We're hoping to get all of our numbers together. I believe Shri has a date for our council workshop. It is in,
May 24th at 5:30.
thank you, just to,
24th at 5:30. 24th.
I'm sorry, I'll speak into the mic. May 24th at 5:30.
and Mr. Heyman was correct. We are working on updating the salary schedule. We have made those adjustments, but we have to get to the point in the budget where she can enter it all in, roll it in, and then see where we're at on our budget that we had set aside for employee compensation. So we'll know here in the next week or two how we sit on that.
Very good.
And then, as you know, we have a significant number of road projects that are under construction. If you haven't driven on a few of those roads, they're turning out extremely well. The construction company that we're working with has been doing a very good job. And so it's good news. They're going to start on Reeves here this week, which I think, in my opinion, is one of the worst roads out there, and I can't wait to get fixed. So
I will tell you, I have gotten at least two citizens who pulled me aside during the course of work days and have thanked us for the work on Franklin. And just what a difference completing curb and gutter does to the quality of the community, as well as the, I don't want to say this because it sounds mean, but the sense of negligence and how much it changed their perceptions on how much we are willing to get going and how much we actually are identifying the problems. They were directly impacted, but their first words were, the relief is that I didn't just drive into work and all I saw was Ward being fixed, but I actually saw fixes happening to Ward and my neighborhood at the same time. Yeah, but I'm just saying, but there was the idea that they weren't, that not just the big roads were getting attention, that mindset, which we all have worked very hard to, that's not the case, but arterials are important, but the idea that they were actually seeing real construction impacts in areas where it just like this, it was so overdue. Franklin was dramatically overdue, and we all knew it. And we would have gotten to it 2 years earlier had, other things not happened.
Right, and the last thing is that we're having our second town hall meeting, I believe, May 2nd, during the Quality of Life Day. Am I still in your
You
thunder
stole
there?
that one,
All right.
turkey.
Anyway, so it'll be
Give me
our
a moment.
second meeting. I'll let you finish up on that. But anyway, that's all I have, Mr. Mayor.
Just teasing you, Ron.
I have a question.
Sure.
On the night on Balsam Street, did they have flyers last time that put in businesses and that?
Yes, in fact, this time Jennifer and Isabel walked all the businesses, gave them a flyer. That was kind of it was a pre-release. The flyer wasn't supposed to get out, but somebody took it upon themselves to clip a picture of it and post it on Facebook. But yeah, it will be, it should be very well advertised.
Okay, because I think that'd be great, just for the businesses to have a flyer to put up. I think we copied something and put
Right.
it up at our office, but yeah,
Right.
this is good.
One thing I forgot, we are working with SCE to get those light poles fixed on Balsam Street. We've had 6 of them, 1 that's totally broke, and then 5 that are intermittent. They're going to give us a hand in getting those fixed and getting them ready to go. And as you know, that decorative light project, that's still moving along. It's just a little bit, we just got to get past a few little things to make it happen. So I'm hoping to get those up before, but if not, it'll be shortly thereafter. That's all I have.
And probably the biggest message there on Night of Balsam is we went out there the first time and we learned lessons. And now we're going to go out there a second time. And I'm promising everyone out there we're going to learn additional lessons. Lesson number 1, we will have enough wine. Lesson number 2, we are having more food vendors. Lesson number 3, we're going to have better lighting. Lesson number 4, and so on and so forth. And this is what is good, progressive improvement rather than, oh, this one thing didn't go right, so we just abandon it, or we give up on something, or we've got a great team working on bringing these events to our community, and thank you so much. I'm super excited to see how Night at Balsam 2.0, but I'm okay with getting to version 25 or 26 down the line, so.
Yeah, staff's been doing a really good job working with the RACBB and Chamber and a few of the other businesses in town to make that happen. So,
Yeah, one of the businesses actually reached out to me and actually asked, how can I get involved this time around, where compared to last time they weren't? And I was able to push them to our city staff.
yeah, we're working. I mean, I think one of the main things we'd like them to do is just keep their business open. If we got 3,000 people out there, let the people see your business where and what you're doing, what your business is all about. We're not asking them to really to pour wine, sell anything for us. So we'll just see how it evolves. I think the group is fairly open-minded about where this is going to go. And really, at the end of the day, we just want to provide an event that's going to improve our quality of life that people have value to go to.
Yep.
And we'll see where it goes.
And 2 years from now, we can have Night at the Pool. Okay? No alcohol, but we can still have Night at the Pool. Okay. Future agenda items. Any future agenda items?
I have a question. I have a little bit of a go back, so sorry about procedures in committees and boards. This is last minute, and I don't think any of you are going to take me up on it, but I cannot go to the Desert Mountain Division Cal Cities meeting. It's in person in Hesperia on the 21st. So I know this is rather last minute, but if any of you can attend, that'd be great. If not, then, well, that's okay. Just wanted to throw that bomb out there. Getting back to where we're supposed to be on future agenda items, Mr. Mayor, didn't you bring up a bill that you wanted to discuss?
I did. That was the Taxpayers' Rights Initiative that it's pending for the November 2024 election cycle. I was able to, I was in Sacramento and got a chance to visit with legislators as well as get some additional feedback from Cal Cities and from our city staff. It is something we need to have on our proverbial radar of knowledge and awareness, but it does not appear that the current language would negatively affect Measure P or Measure V because of the sunset clauses that they have. But the key is that there's a lot of time between now and then, and it definitely sounds like, well, the big issue is actually municipality versus citizens tax roll. That's the real key element is the initiative essentially applies that 2/3 passage to citizen-initiated tax measures compared to a municipality-issued measure such as Measure P, where the municipality actually puts forth the measure to the voters of its community. That would still have the 50+1 general use condition.
Right, there was an opinion on the 218 that allowed, because normally if it's an initiative that comes from the voters, it has to be 2/3.
Right.
So if it's specific, there was a case decision that made it 51%. And so that's what they're trying to address, is among other things. I mean, I still plan on bringing it forward.
Sure, I only bring it up, I mean, so in the interest of staying on topic and Brown Act, et cetera, I just brought it up just to make sure that we were thinking about it. That leads me to another thing that it doesn't have to be on future agenda items. It could be the kind of thing that gets kicked to other committees. But there is multiple bills that I'm tracking through California, the League of California Cities, that they have actually template support letters. I didn't know if those are the kind of things you wanted me to either I could send to staff and they could send out to you, or I could send out to the council. I'm generally not in the favor of sending everybody an email.
I would say that if you think something is of merit to this council, and you have a conversation with City Manager Strand, and you guys are of the same accord that this is something that should be brought forward for our support or conversation, then I would certainly tell you to be encouraged to do that. I think advocacy is part of why we're seeing the changes and some of the successes that we are seeing as a community, because we are standing up and advocating for ourselves. And I think if you should have something that you believe is as it reaches that level, then
Yeah, there was just a lot of bills introduced this week up in Sacramento. So
there was 2,700 bills introduced this year.
Yeah.
If you want to talk about cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs.
yeah, so and there's a few of them that the league's tracking, and I appreciate them being there as an advocate to track those things. So there was a couple, and I'll talk to Ron about it.
I would say as the Cal Cities, as the assigned role from a committee perspective.
No, I'm happy to do it.
Is I would say if you think it's of merit, then I would welcome it to come forward.
Roger that. That is all I have for possible future agenda items.
Any others? Okay, we'll go ahead and move on with mayor and council comments. Skip, I'm gonna let you be the first one tonight.
Thank you. Not much, except I'll go from the sublime to the mundane later on this summer. When we're sitting around cursing the heat, one of us will have the presence of mind to remember. April 19th. It's dark now, so you missed it, but the day was brilliant. It was just right. This is why I've been inattentive and a bit dreamy this evening at this meeting. We had occasion, my first wife and I, to chase wildflowers this last weekend and visited Death Valley. I mention this so if any of the rest of you want to go visit Death Valley, I can't recommend going by way of Wild Rose Canyon, even though we were in a very able Subaru. Little car struggled. It'll make a mess out of your undercarriage. Go the regular way, and everything's fine. You gonna talk about this?
I was, but you're more than happy to invite people as well.
No, it's most appropriately for you to mention. That's all, thank you.
Talking. Okay, Doc? Anything?
None.
None. Solomon?
None.
None? Mr. Blades? Nothing, okay.
I know. Well, I mean, I could always talk, but that's probably better for the crowd if I just sip it.
So I'll be quick. I believe, if I'm remembering correctly, and if you're listening out there, don't shoot me. It's Andrew who just swore in for the PD department. Is that correct? Jeez. Okay, I believe it's Andrew. I just wanted to.
She would know.
Andrew, right though? Yes. Yeah, I wanted to pass on my congratulations and welcoming Andrew to our stellar Ridgecrest Police Department. I also wanted to extend my thanks to them for their continued service. The world's a little crazy out there, and we're doing everything in our power to keep Ridgecrest as normal as we can and as safe as we can. And I just encourage everyone to be smart with their, I get it. It's a scary time out there, and there's a lot of things that are said that's scary, but we have an incredible community. But take that extra moment. Be smart enough to lock your car up at night, lock your house. Do the things that we all know are smart that we sometimes get in the bad habits of just assuming that Ridgecrest is always going to be that way. But I wanted to thank and welcome Andrew. I got the pleasure to run up to Sacramento again last week. Had nice visits with Senator Grove's staff, as well as met with Assemblyman Fong. I didn't really hammer them about a bunch of issues because we have an incredible advocacy team that's already doing it. And the things that I want to tell you that I can't talk about what Senator Grove spoke to me about, but I want to offer her an incredible compliment that I did on that day too, which is she approached me about an issue. She was mentioning an issue that she's working very hard on behalf of Ridgecrest. And I was so incredibly pleased with the level of detail and knowledge that she already knew about the issue. I'm not trying to dig on legislators, but there's so often so many issues that are going on that it's very easy for an issue of this importance to simply be not addressed or not understood, and she did an incredible job of understanding it. And it's an important issue to the community, and I just want to thank her for her continued efforts advocating for us. Semlin Fong, once again, is a great budget defender and continues to work very hard. He had the line of the day, which is, I think that every legislator should have to go take a financial education class, because I happen to be there advocating for credit unions at the same time, and
That's a possible bill being.
that is a possible bill being considered that says every new legislator in the state assembly or state senate has to take a financial literacy course. And I got to tell you, I absolutely agree with him and strongly agree. If you are a member of a volunteer organization, a board of directors, or a planning board or anything else like that, just for the record, you have many different trainings and classes that you're required to take in order to fulfill that obligation of taking on a leadership role for that organization. And I think if you're taking on a leadership role of the California state budget, you probably should have some basic financial literacy as well. And I that was my favorite comment of the couple days there, and maybe one day we can see that happen. I want to reiterate what City Manager Strand said, which is Pool Town Hall number 2 is coming on May the 2nd at our Quality of Life meeting. We will be presenting. We are already into our second iteration process. Thank you to the community members that showed up for Town Hall 1. We've been able to take those ideas and then keep your ideas incorporated and building out. And we've pulled some things out. We've pushed some things this direction, and some things went left, some things went right, some things went up, some things went down. But the bottom line is we're excited to be bringing to our community the second town hall, and we will have hopefully some additional drawings to show you by that meeting. And we are still continuing on our course towards a spring-summer 2025, everyone jumping in the pool. Lastly, I want to invite the community. May the 4th is, well, it's a great day, period. I'm a nerd. Come on, guys. It's an important day for me. So May the 4th is a great day for many reasons, but for this year, it also happens to correspond with the Mayor's Prayer Breakfast and the National Day of Prayer. And I want to invite the community to come out to the Desert Christian Community Center on the morning of the 4th. Hear from some speakers also, but more importantly, joining the camaraderie of community together. There's an old story I had before I ever ran for office. I don't think I had attended a single one of the breakfasts. And one of my coworkers told me if I get elected, I have to attend the breakfast. I said, but it's so early in the morning. I'm not a morning guy. It's 6 a.m. Are you serious? And for this one, I've been so touched by how the community comes together and what type of day it is to just not only pray for our community, but also for all the people that serve our community. That I've invited my 8-year-old son to come, and when I told him he has to get up at 5:30 in the morning to get properly dressed, there was some pushback, and then I said, "What is prayer?" And he said, "Okay, I'm in." And so it was it's a great breakfast. It's a great opportunity to be together, and I would certainly encourage anyone from the community to be there. Tickets are $8. If you don't know that, you can reach out to the Kiwanis Club, or I'm sure any one of us can find a way to get you that. My last notes would be simply to say it was a wet winter, but I echo the sentiments of Councilman Gorman that there's no more beautiful time right now than looking outside and seeing all of our beautiful wildflowers and looking at the beautiful weather we have. Yeah, it's maybe a little windy. Yeah, it may be a little this, but there's no greater community you could be living in right now. Thank you for being a part of Ridgecrest, and we look forward to seeing you on May the 3rd.